began as an ordinary day at the bakery quickly turned tense when a man wearing a helmet burst in, waving a gun. He chambered around and fired a shot into the air, sending a clear, threatening message to everyone inside. Panic erupted. But just nearby, an off-duty police officer, out on a routine shopping trip, was startled by the sudden gunfire. Without a moment's hesitation, he drew his weapon, and in the blink of an eye took the gunman down on the spot. He successfully protected everyone present, a swift, heroic response, one worthy of a commendation from the governor himself. This thief was trying to snatch a handbag from a woman's grasp when, without a moment's hesitation, a nearby man lunged forward and delivered a devastating flying kick. The blow knocked the robber off balance, rescuing the woman and her child in a split second. A seemingly ordinary day at the young woman's small fashion boutique was suddenly shattered when two armed robbers burst through the door. One of them, arrogant and cold-blooded, pointed his gun straight at her, demanding money with a sneer. Terrified and frozen in fear, she could barely react until her husband appeared, descending swiftly from the upper floor. Without hesitation, he fired his weapon to protect her. His rapid and decisive action saved his wife from imminent danger. Moments later, the police arrived, quickly pursuing and apprehending the remaining criminal. This situation is a powerful reminder to stay alert when parking and always be aware of your surroundings, especially in isolated areas. A man was sitting in his car when a stranger casually walked up and suddenly pulled a gun, pointing it directly at him in an attempt to steal both his money and vehicle. But the would-be victim was sharp and ready. In a split second, he reached for his own weapon, turned the tables, and forced the armed robber to flee for his life. A tense moment and a clear message: stay alert, stay prepared. A bold and shameless robbery took place on a deserted street when a man riding his motorbike was suddenly approached and cornered by two criminals. One of the robbers, clearly aggressive, began threatening him and rummaging through his belongings. But what the thieves didn't realize was that karma was already on its way. From a distance, an unmarked police vehicle quietly rolled onto the scene, and within seconds, plainclothes officers sprang into action. The robbers had no time to react, no chance to flee or make excuses. They were swiftly overpowered and forced face down onto the pavement, with justice closing in fast and hard. The couple was enjoying coffee at a sidewalk cafe when a guy suddenly approached and pointed a gun at them. In a flash, the husband lunged forward, grappling for the weapon. His wife moved with perfect precision, stepping back smoothly, drawing her own gun, ready to protect her husband. Caught off guard and outmatched, the would-be robber panicked and turned tail, fleeing the scene. It was just another ordinary day at this clothing shop, until three men suddenly switched roles from casual customers to armed robbers. One of them pulled out a gun, pointing it straight at the shop owner and demanding money. But the owner didn't flinch. Calm and composed, he stood his ground and faced the armed man head-on. It didn't take long for the would-be robbers to realize they had made a huge mistake, and by the end of it, they walked away with nothing but a harsh lesson they won't forget. These two thugs were trying to rob an elderly couple who had stopped their motorbike at a red light. But just then, the man in a nearby white car saw what was happening, and without a second's hesitation, he burst out of his vehicle and charged toward the armed attackers, rescuing the couple from danger in a split second. The armed robber was brandishing his gun, threatening the female cashier and demanding money. But before he could do anything else, A male employee rushed in to rescue her from danger. A robber broke into a convenience store and took an old woman hostage, demanding money from the store owner, but he quickly took action and successfully rescued the elderly woman. These two robbers bolted in panic before they could even carry out the robbery because the homeowner reacted with lightning speed. Caught off guard by his swift and fearless self-defense, the would-be thieves had no choice but to flee for their lives. These three men were just walking down the street when suddenly, two guys on motorbikes came speeding toward them. Without warning, one of the attackers pulled out a gun and aimed it straight at them. But before he could even announce the robbery, the tables had turned. In a flash, the would-be victims reacted with lightning speed, completely flipping the situation. Caught off guard and overwhelmed, the would-be robbers panicked. They dropped their motorbikes and fled the scene. This guy pretended to be a regular customer, calm, relaxed, just browsing. But suddenly he pulled out a gun and demanded money from the shop owner. Fearing for his life, the owner had no choice but to comply. The robber then rushed inside, rummaging through the shelves looking for anything valuable. But the shop owner was simply waiting for the right moment. And when the time came, he fired in self-defense, catching the robber off guard and sending him fleeing into the street. Within moments, the police were on their way, and the criminal was taken into custody. These two thugs posed as rescue workers to get close to the man's family and rob them. But his wife sprang into action, unleashing a fierce barrage of blows to protect her husband and child. The thieves were no match for her. They fled in terror. This woman was a police officer off duty when two robbers on a motorbike came speeding toward her. The one on the back raised his gun, aiming it straight at her. But in that split second, he realized his deadly mistake. In a flash, the officer drew her weapon and pulled the trigger. The gunshot rang out. The robber collapsed to the ground in panic, then staggered to his feet and fled in terror. Without a moment's hesitation, she chased after him, but he managed to escape. The criminals, however, were captured just a few days after the attack. Two assailants attempted to threaten the store owner and customers during an attempted robbery. However, the store owner reacted swiftly, opening fire in self-defense and heroically safeguarding the lives of everyone present. This guy was threatening the shopkeeper with a knife, demanding money. But a man sprang into action just in time to save her. The heroic man used a beautiful traditional Brazilian wrestling. A robber on a motorbike sped toward the parked car, pulled out a gun, and threatened the young couple to rob them. But the woman remained calm. Without panicking, she quickly stepped away from the scene. She knew her man would take control immediately, and she was right. Within seconds, the thief was on the ground, begging the man for forgiveness for his foolish actions. A daring robbery took place on the street while a man was chatting with his daughter. Suddenly, the thieves rushed towards them. The quick-witted girl immediately ran away from the scene, while the father calmly slammed the car window shut and acted right away. Turning danger into opportunity, he showed unwavering determination to protect his daughter at all costs. He is a hero, a father ready to defend his child at any moment. This robber had just pointed a gun at the young man. Without wasting a second, the young man grabbed the robber's arm, slammed him to the ground, and ripped the weapon from his hand. He pinned the thief to the pavement and delivered a brutal lesson the criminal would never forget. It was an ordinary day at the small restaurant until a robber walked in and pointed a gun at the female cashier, demanding she put all the money into a plastic bag for him. At that moment, an elderly gentleman sitting nearby witnessed the incident, and without hesitation, he rushed in, subdued the robber, and rescued the cashier. It was just another ordinary day at this diner until a robber burst in, walked up to the counter, and pulled out a gun, threatening the cashier and demanding money. Seeing his co-worker staring down the barrel of a gun, a male employee didn't hesitate for a second. He grabbed a chair and turned it into a rescue weapon, launching a surprise attack that not only saved his colleague, but also handed the robber a one-way, all expenses paid ticket to prison. A strange and deliberate robbery. Around 9 a.m., a homeless man was calmly walking down the street, counting the few coins he had, when suddenly a stranger approached him. The man asked the victim for money, but the victim, who only had $6, refused to give him anything. Without hesitation, the attacker took off his shirt, lunged at the man, pushed him against a fence, and started rummaging through his pockets, trying to take whatever he could find. Fortunately, at that very moment, an off-duty police officer sitting in an unmarked car nearby happened to hear the cries for help. Without hesitation, he rushed over and immediately apprehended the suspect on the spot, rescuing the victim. Two thugs spotted two women and an older gentleman inside an office and stormed in to rob the place. Waving their guns, they barked orders, forcing everyone to raise their hands. But they made one critical mistake, underestimating the elegant older man. Like a lion protecting his domain, he sprang into action with astonishing speed. In a flash, he lunged at one of the attackers, locking him in a tight hold. Then, with a calm but powerful move, he pinned the man to the floor and held him there with unshakable strength until the police arrived to take over. The family fought back against an armed robber to protect each other and their store. It all began when a strange man wearing a white cap pretended to be a customer. Then, without warning, he announced that he had a gun and this was a robbery. He ordered them to stay calm and demanded all the valuables be put into his bag. But just as he was reloading his weapon, the young man in the family seized the moment. He lunged forward and snatched the gun from the robber's hands. At that very instant, the entire family sprang into action, tackling the intruder and pinning him down. A brazen daylight robbery at a shopping mall. This man was smashing a jewelry display case with a hammer, attempting to steal its contents. But in a flash, a brave young man dashed in at lightning speed, subduing the robber in the blink of an eye. Other courageous bystanders nearby quickly rushed in to help restrain the thief until the police arrived. A robbery suddenly turned emotional when an elderly man, clearly struggling just to walk, bravely stood up to the thief with fearless, unyielding determination. While younger people chose to flee the moment the robber stormed in, brandishing a gun and shouting threats, the old man didn't hesitate for a second. He charged straight at the thief and grabbed him. With the heart of a lion, he fought back. Though advanced in age, he showed no fear, fighting like a legendary warrior reborn. With unwavering courage, he wrestled the robber to the ground. He almost caught the criminal, and in that moment, he became a true hero, a living legend for the younger generation to look up to. This thug was attacking the cashier, trying to steal the money, completely unaware that danger was creeping up behind him. Out of nowhere, a man silently approached from behind, then suddenly grabbed him and slammed him to the ground, saving the cashier from harm. While the hero kept the robber pinned tightly to the floor, the cashier calmly picked up the phone and called the police. These two thugs charged at the girl, brandishing their weapons and demanding her belongings. But just when things looked grim, a hero on a car came speeding in to the rescue. In a stunning twist, the robbers not only failed to steal anything, they lost their own motorbike and had to flee for their lives. The young man was standing deep in thought, immersed in anticipation of his date that evening with his girlfriend, when suddenly a guy wearing a baseball cap approached, gun in hand, and pointed it directly at him in an attempted robbery. In a split second, the young man sensed the danger. Without a moment's hesitation, he grabbed the robber's wrist, locked it tightly, and tried to wrest the weapon away. The two were instantly locked in a fierce struggle, caught in a tense and desperate stalemate. Eventually, the robber began to tire. Breathing heavily, he signaled his surrender. At that moment, the crowd finally rushed in to assist, and together they managed to subdue the would-be thief, while the young man remained standing firm, still gripping the weapon, and still thinking about his date later that night. A failed robbery was caught on camera at a mobile phone store. After stealing, the two thieves tried to flee but were spotted and chased by bystanders. As they turned back to escape, a female superhero tripped them, causing them to fall, and they were promptly captured. It was just an ordinary day at this transaction office until chaos erupted. A masked robber stormed in, waving a gun and threatening everyone in sight. He began demanding phones, cash, gold rings, anything of value. The atmosphere instantly turned tense and chaotic. Two men repeatedly raised their hands, signaling surrender. As the robber turned his attention to snatching the watch from another man, the two took advantage of the distraction and quickly moved to a safe spot. The robber pressed further inside, but the security guard fired a shot in self-defense. As the robber tried to flee, one man sprang into action, tackling him against the wall and wresting the weapon from his hands. Others inside the room rushed to assist, and together they managed to subdue and capture the robber on the spot. The young couple was walking hand in hand, when suddenly a man rushed in and snatched the necklace. The young man immediately sprang into action to protect his girlfriend. The perfect day at this cozy bakery was suddenly shattered when a knife-wielding robber stormed in and threatened a young female employee, demanding cash. In a flash, two male staff members sprang into action to shield her. At the same moment, the elderly chef rushed in and delivered a stunning flying kick that sent the robber crashing to the ground. Within seconds, the would-be thief was overpowered and subdued. An attempted robbery at a gas station turned into a stunning spectacle when, in the blink of an eye, a man disarmed the robber with lightning-fast precision. The move was so quick and flawless, it left the armed criminal stunned and speechless. But what happened next was even more shocking. The man spared the robber, choosing not to retaliate. It was an act of terrifyingly powerful self-control. A daring robbery ended in complete failure at a supermarket when the suspect pulled out a knife and threatened the cashier, demanding money. Fearing for her safety, she had no choice but to comply. But a hero standing just behind her was ready to act. The moment he spotted an opening, he sprang into action. His right hand disarmed the suspect while his left hand and body forcefully pushed the robber forward. Completely caught off guard, the thief fell to the ground and was immediately subdued. At the same time, nearby witnesses rushed in. These two thugs were attempting an armed robbery, waving their guns in a bold effort to steal cash. But the shop owner and his employee didn't back down. They fought back with incredible courage, overpowering and capturing one of the robbers. The other, still armed, ran off. But just as he was about to escape, his captured accomplice began crying and begging him not to leave him behind. The gunman hesitated, then turned back. Sensing the situation could escalate further, the shop owner made the decision to stand down. The robbers seized the opportunity and fled. The thief thought he was slick, trying to distract the woman behind the counter to rob her. What he didn't know was that the moment he walked in, her husband, stationed at the front of the store, sensed something was off and quietly began monitoring him through the security camera. The thief kept asking about bottles of liquor behind her, forcing her to turn around. While she was distracted, he seized the moment, slipping chocolate bars into his coat pocket with practiced speed. He planned to pay for just one drink and stroll out with his stolen loot. But just as he was about to leave, her husband stepped in. With no hesitation, he showed the crook exactly how it feels to be robbed. They made him return everything he tried to steal. And after teaching him a lesson he won't soon forget, they threw him out of the store. A daring robbery unfolded at the Mi Nadita restaurant in Tucson, Arizona. After failing to force the staff to hand over money, the suspect flew into a rage and began kicking over furniture in a frenzy. But just as he was causing chaos, a man from behind suddenly charged in and slammed him down using a chair. Seizing the moment, other staff members rushed in, overwhelming the robber in a dramatic struggle. By the time police arrived, the suspect was already pinned flat on the floor. A robbery is currently sparking quite a bit of controversy between two opposing public opinions: proactive self-defense and instinctive self-defense. In this case, the robbers were armed and extremely aggressive. The old man's actions were heroic, but they also carried the risk of escalating the situation and putting him in greater danger. In my personal opinion, it's better to let the police handle it afterwards. These two thieves broke into a house to steal a motorbike. While they were focused on their task, the homeowner discovered them, and to their surprise, he turned out to be a martial arts master. On his own, he lip-punched and kicked both robbers at once. At the same time, the whole village showed up, each person lending a hand or a foot to teach the thieves a lesson they wouldn't forget. A serious armed robbery at a convenience store in the 2500 block of North Freeway, Houston, was thwarted thanks to the quick reflexes of the store owner. Surveillance footage captured the tense moment. 4 suspects wearing hoodies entered the store pretending to shop. They casually roamed the aisles, scanning the area, until 3 of them suddenly drew guns and pointed them at the owner, demanding cash. But the store owner had sensed trouble coming. Without hesitation, he pulled out his own firearm and opened fire in self-defense. The sound of gunshots sent the robbers into a panic, and they scattered in all directions, fleeing across the highway. This man was casually chatting with the female cashier when, out of nowhere, an armed robber burst through the door. But it took him just 1 second to draw his gun and take control of the situation. In a flash, he had the robber pinned down and forced flat on the ground. The cashier, calm as ever. She simply picked up the phone and coolly called the police, as if this were just another day at work. The young woman was standing alone when a stranger approached from behind and suddenly grabbed her in an attempt to snatch her phone. She reacted quickly, throwing the phone toward a nearby man with a pleading look in her eyes. The man immediately came to her aid. Frustrated, the suspect walked away, only to be caught by the police shortly afterward. An armed robber stormed into a convenience store where an elderly man was quietly working. Without hesitation, the criminal brandished his gun and demanded that the elderly cashier open the register. At that very moment, a police officer arrived on the scene just in time. He carefully observed every move. Then the officer drew his weapon and ordered the suspect to freeze. But the robber wasn't about to surrender so easily. He struggled and resisted, desperately trying to escape. However, the officer swiftly subdued him without firing a single shot. Justice was served, calmly and under control. This guy was extremely aggressive. He used a gun to threaten the man in an attempt to steal his money, but the man reacted with incredible speed and precision, disarming him in an instant. It all ended beautifully, with the robber begging over and over to be allowed to go home to his mother. Seemingly ordinary day suddenly turned into chaos when two young men stormed in with guns, carrying out a daring robbery. Their target, the cashier counter, where an elderly man was working. Without wasting a second, the moment they spotted him, the robbers raised their guns and aimed straight at him. Like a flash of lightning, the old man immediately fired back in self-defense. Completely caught off guard by the unexpected gunfire, the criminals scrambled out of the store on all fours in a panic, never looking back. Bold armed robbery in broad daylight was stopped by some incredible citizens. Surveillance footage captured the dramatic moment when two hooded men tried to pull a man out of his car, demanding his watch and anything of value. But their plan quickly fell apart. As the situation descended into chaos, two brave and decisive men suddenly appeared, fearlessly confronting the robbers head-on without hesitation. Their courageous actions forced the criminals to flee in panic. It was a remarkable display of heroism that earned the admiration and respect of the entire community. A bold, broad daylight robbery took place at a cosmetics store in Pennsylvania, where two men were frantically trying to steal as many products as possible in record time. But their speed was no match for the lightning-fast response of the police. In a surprising twist, it seemed law enforcement had been waiting for them all along, ready to strike. Within moments, the suspects were taken down and left sprawled on the floor. An armed robbery was quickly shut down, because this time, the victims were armed too. The two robbers stormed in, thinking they had the upper hand. But within seconds, the men they targeted pulled out their own guns and aimed them straight at the would-be thieves. Caught completely off guard, the robbers didn't hesitate. They turned tail and ran for their lives. This woman was trying to steal the man's package. After losing several deliveries and growing increasingly frustrated, he was determined to catch the thief in the act. Today, he set a trap, recorded everything, and posted it online to send a clear message to criminals everywhere.
What are you doing? Doing dumb shit. I got you on video anyway. I got you on video and your plate.
These two guys clearly have a knack for comedy, but instead of taking it to the stage, they chose a life of crime. To make their robbery more exciting, they came up with a ridiculous plan. Ride a motorbike straight into the store, pull off a dramatic swerve, then jump off and draw their guns to demand cash. But their performance turned into a disaster when the police showed up, and one of them was immediately slammed to the ground. An 83-year-old man, a longtime loyal customer, was chatting with a young man beside him when suddenly, 3 armed robbers stormed in. One wielded a hammer, another a knife, and the third pointed a gun. The young man quickly moved to safety, but after a brief moment of shock and confusion, the elderly man and a store employee joined forces to bravely fight back against the armed attackers. Like a storm in the center of chaos, the old man launched himself into the fray, punching, kicking, and striking from all sides. His fearless assault left the 3 robbers stunned and scrambling, each tripping over the other in a frantic attempt to flee. A post office robbery in Scotland was spectacularly stopped by a real-life Spider-Man. The suspect, dressed head to toe in black, wearing a black mask, targeted a woman working alone behind the counter. As he approached and violently shoved her aside in the blink of an eye, a real-life Spider-Man sprang into action. He flew over the counter like a superhero, one hand disarming the suspect, the other delivering a flawless chokehold, taking the robber down with lightning-fast speed and pinpoint accuracy. At that very moment, other nearby heroes rushed in to help restrain the suspect and ensure justice was served. A can of bear spray should be a must-have in every store, ready to unleash when chaos strikes out of nowhere. Failed armed robbery at an elderly man's store, the suspect approached the shop carrying an automatic firearm and announced his intention to rob it. However, the store owner opened fire with a hunting rifle before the robbers could enter, injuring one of them in the arm. The suspects fled the scene shortly after, and the store owner was taken to the hospital after suffering a mild heart attack. This guy was trying to rob a woman, but before he knew it, an old lady stormed in, swinging her broom like a warrior. She rained down blow after blow, turning the would-be thief into a human punching bag. These 3 guys walked into the store pretending to be customers. Then one of them suddenly jumped over the counter to steal the cash. What they didn't expect was that the store owner was ready for them. With lightning-fast speed, he pulled out a knife, standing his ground with fearless determination. Caught off guard by the resistance they hadn't prepared for, the robbers had no choice but to retreat. This robber stormed into the store with a knife in hand, demanding cash. But he quickly realized he made a huge mistake, because his little blade was no match for a full-length baseball bat. These 2 guys noticed the unattended motorbike, and greed immediately took over. One of them jumped off and tried to steal it. Just as he was running away, the man from the house rushed out, pointing a gun straight at him. Terrified, the thief panicked and fled. while the man hadn't even fired a single shot. A young woman was walking alone down the street when a thief suddenly rushed up and snatched her phone. A nearby man immediately jumped in to rescue her and managed to subdue the robber. A short while later, the police arrived to secure the scene. A bold robbery of 2025 ended spectacularly, swift, clean, and shocking, as the driver swerved like lightning, throwing the armed robber into chaos while his bewildered accomplices stood frozen, clueless about what had just happened. In the end, the three guys left the scene in humiliating, bitter failure. The robbers use aggressive gang-style tactics, often employing multiple motorbikes to surround their victims, focusing on stealing high-end motorcycles to sell or strip for parts. The stolen motorcycles are dismantled and sold at illegal shops, contributing to a cycle of crime driven by violence. A daring bank robbery was spectacularly foiled by a seasoned security guard. The moment the robber jumped over the counter, before he could demand a single dollar, the guard opened fire, ensuring the safety of everyone present. Bank robbery was swiftly thwarted thanks to the courageous actions of a security guard and several customers present at the scene. Dramatic footage captured by a security camera shows the tense moment. After grabbing a backpack full of cash, the suspect attempted to escape. He pointed a gun at the security guard, demanding the door be opened. Without a moment's hesitation, the guard sprang into action, tackling the robber and trying to wrestle the gun away. At that very instant, a nearby man launched himself at the suspect like a bolt of lightning, locking him in a chokehold and helping to disarm him. Thanks to the bravery and teamwork of those involved, the robber was quickly subdued. Police arrived shortly after and took the suspect into custody. While walking home from school, Timofey was suddenly confronted by a man who blocked his way and snatched his smartphone. Timofey cried out for help. Just a short distance away, 72-year-old Mikhail Makarov was working on a car engine when he heard the cries. Looking up, Makarov saw the thief running straight toward him, with the boy chasing close behind. Without a moment's hesitation, the elderly man sprang into action, tripping the thief and sending him crashing to the ground. The unidentified criminal staggered to his feet and tried to flee again, but Makarov wasn't finished. With astonishing speed and strength, he grabbed the thief by the collar and pinned him to the ground. Police later arrested the suspect and revealed that he had a prior criminal record. This guy stormed into the store with a sniper rifle, ready to rob the place. But the moment he saw the clerk's point, .38 caliber pistol, he turned on his heels and bolted, not daring to look back. The armored car carrying the bank money is parked and the security guard was walking towards it. He calmly opened the door like every day. A guy in a white hooded shirt ran up and pointed a gun at the security guard. He wanted to rob the money truck. The fight lasted for a few seconds. The security guard defended himself well and defeated the robber. With the guard's ability to read situations and excellent reflexes, the robber decided to run away with his teammate. Two armed robbers had meticulously planned to hit a Boost mobile store in Paterson, New Jersey, but their scheme unraveled spectacularly when they failed to subdue the store manager. Tommy Torres, who managed to slip out through the back in a daring escape. Thinking quickly, Torres alerted another employee and activated the security gates, locking both the front and back entrances, effectively trapping the robbers inside. Realizing they'd walked straight into a trap, the panicked duo began smashing windows and screaming for help. Torres called the police not once, but 5 times, yet law enforcement still didn't arrive in time. Eventually, the desperate criminals found a pair of bolt cutters and managed to break free. But their moment of freedom didn't last long. Shortly afterward, both men, 50-year-old Samuel Labo and a man identified as Travis Davis, were apprehended and are now facing a slew of charges, including armed robbery and unlawful possession of a weapon. An armed robbery was quickly thwarted, thanks to the incredible driving skills of a brave woman. As she pulled into her driveway, the robbers sped in behind her in their own car. Before she could even step out, they rushed up, drew their guns, and demanded her vehicle. But faced with extreme danger, she made a fearless decision. She threw the car into reverse and backed out at high speed, escaping their threats with precision driving and nerves of steel. A terrifying scene unfolded on a city bus this evening. The bus was cruising along its familiar route, packed with passengers. The male driver stopped at a routine station and opened the doors to let new passengers on board. But in a shocking twist, a man who had just stepped onto the bus suddenly pulled out a knife, threatening the driver and demanding money. Caught off guard but reacting instinctively, the driver immediately fought back in self-defense. Just when the situation seemed to spiral out of control, a courageous woman sprang into action. She charged forward and struck the attacker with her backpack, catching him completely off guard. Her quick and fearless move allowed the driver to break free from immediate danger. Realizing his plan had failed, the attacker quickly jumped off the bus and vanished into the night.